I'm trying this again, the live thing. This time trying it without a mic to see what it sounds like. Might sound like shit. If it does, we'll use a mic again next time because some of these mics are hard to get working with different apps. I'm not sure how they work with YouTube. They work differently when I use them with the video camera. But yeah, last time got some pretty good feedback on the live stream, although nobody was there when it was live. A couple of people listened to it afterwards, so I'll try it again, just stream of consciousness. And I wanted to talk about fear because, whew, I've been facing a bunch of different fears recently on a new level, and I see a lot of people around me that are stuck in their fears. And I don't know how long it's been, but for the past couple years, I've just had it in my head, and I've learned that it's better to just face the shit. As soon as it comes up, it takes time sometimes to face the fear, but like do whatever it takes to face it, because if you don't, it just keeps hanging on your back. It's like weights holding you down, and as soon as you face it, the weights are lifted, and you can move a lot freer. And it's a lot easier said than done, which is why I want to talk about it, because when you go into the details of what that looks like, it becomes a little, you find these practical tips as to how you can go about actually facing the fears and conquering them. And sometimes conquering them doesn't mean getting rid of them, it just means being able to look at them and stay calm. You still have that fear, but you don't let it control you and dictate your decisions. Shut up, computer. Give me a second. Distracting. I shouldn't be that distracted. I'm okay. So, what are the fears that kind of held me back? Um, when I was younger, there were just tons and tons of fears piled on top of each other. I didn't even identify them as fears. A lot of them were just things that I considered normal, things that people around me might have considered normal. Even just thinking of myself as a shy person. I am a shy person. A lot of people don't think that. They don't believe that. Some people see through. They see that I am actually shy. But some people don't believe that I'm shy, especially shy people. Uh, but I push through it now because I realized, like, you can live a much happier life when you try and make a change yourself and try to make things happen yourself. And so I don't let myself sit back and let things happen to me anymore when there's something that I might be able to do about it. But in the past, I would just kind of sit back and let things happen because it was scary to say something, or it was scary to start talking to someone. But moving overseas, I was forced to talk to people because if I didn't, I wouldn't have had any friends. I wouldn't have made friends, and I would have felt miserable here. And the more I pushed myself, the more friends I found, and the happier I was. Some people are already at a point where they feel they don't need friends, and it's good to be independent. That's another thing I was scared of. I was scared of being alone too. Funny, scared of talking to people, and also scared of being alone. It's a pretty sticky place to be, but it's good to be independent too. And later, I had to face that fear too, and just kind of force myself to be alone because there was a lot of things that I wanted to work on, a lot of things that I wanted to improve about myself, and things that I wanted to make, create, and just constantly being with people was too distracting to actually, you know, go and do it. There were certain things I wanted to change about myself that I couldn't because I was stuck in these patterns, hang out with people in a certain way that wasn't allowing me to grow. Um, yeah, so all of these can be fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of you know going out of your comfort zone. Jeez, they were just piled on top of each other. The fear of failure. I used to fear failure so much, and for me, the best way to face that fear was to fail hard. I failed in a lot of different ways too. You know, I I I imagine myself being a lot more accomplished by now, and by accomplished I mean actually having things that I, how do you say it? Like having a certain level of prestige, I guess. Um, I think the big thing is being able to live off my passion, which I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Definitely a whole lot closer than I've ever been, and in a way, I could say I am living off my passions, although um, there still is a certain extent where I don't feel the freedom to move around. I'm not fully digital yet, which, being able to work online when I want to is definitely the next goal so that I can travel whenever I want. And, I'm not bound to one place, although I would like to grow some roots here or somewhere nearby, I guess. But, that the fear of failure, the fear of like I had these plans to speak 5 languages. I wanted to speak 5 languages in 5 years. That didn't work out. It took 7, 8 years before I felt comfortable with Japanese, and then I learned Mandarin. It took about 5 years too. And you know, now I've started dabbling in some other languages, but still, like I feel I still want to learn more Japanese and be able to communicate better in that since I live in Japan. But even just speaking Japanese, like it felt really great to be able to read a book in Japanese. The first book I read was Wind Up Bird Chronicle by Murakami Haruki. I wanted to read Mishima, but that was just way out of my league. But it was a great accomplishment. I felt great about it, but there's still the sense of failure because, I still don't understand some of what I see on TV. When I'm in a big group, I don't always know what's going on. So that feels like failure to me. But constantly facing that failure and the fear that I'll never be fluent, just dealing with that, saying, well, maybe I'll never be fluent, but I could still try. I got this far, I could get better. If I got this far, I could at least, you know, get 10% better than where I'm at right now. And once I get there, I can get another 10% better. Um, Facing the failure that, um, having kids or, buying a house, all these ideas you have for yourself when you're younger, some people achieve them, some people don't. You have certain ideas of how much money you want to save, how, what kind of. I wanted to write a book by the time I wanted to put out an album by the time I was 25, and it's past that date, and I still haven't put out that album. But when I stopped caring, I put out a bunch of really cool demos, and I stopped looking at it as a product, and maybe I'll put out something that looks more like a product, an album one day, but it doesn't really matter that much to me anymore because I kind of face the fear that, nobody cares, for a while I was scared that nobody cared. And we're kind of going off a little bit, but all of these things are related to fear because um, everything is done in these two modes of love and fear. And you hear it said a lot, depending on what you're listening to. But there are a lot of people saying it, and it's totally true. When you do it out of love, it's exciting and rewarding, and it might reach people. It might not reach people, but at least it feels like it has an impact on you. And sometimes it does have a powerful impact on other people. When you do it out of fear, you might get everything that you want, but in the end, you feel like it's not what you want because you discover like, oh, I didn't know what this was. I didn't realize what this entailed. Like someone wanting to be famous. You want to be famous your whole life. You get it, and then you realize like, oh fuck, fame is not everything I thought it would be. It's not as easy and fun as I thought. Like I still have problems. I still have money issues. I still have family issues. I still have insecurities and all that shit. And now I have a bunch of people stalking me online. Um, so, people that want money, they think like, oh, I want lots of money, and then they end up, not understanding how finances work, and they end up owing more money than they actually made, or they end up in debt because they didn't plan for paying higher taxes, or they didn't realize they didn't have continuous income. Um, or people want this kind of relationship, that kind of relationship, and then it ties them down because they didn't create proper boundaries in the beginning. They find their perfect partner, but then they don't create good boundaries to be able to have freedom within the relationship and go and do the things that they want to do that maybe their partner doesn't necessarily want to do. And so, how do we get here? You know, when you do things out of fear, that's the result. But when you do it out of love, you are able to create those boundaries, and you find that person, and it might not be everything that you thought it was, but at least both people are allowed to grow and to improve and to explore themselves and to live better and better lives, to move closer and closer to a life that they're excited to live. I think we're doing pretty good today, stream of consciousness. But so, like I can't even get to half the fears that I've been weighed down by my whole life. I'm not even halfway through. I'm not even a quarter of the way through. And I'm not going to get through all of them today. I'll try and get through about half if I can, but like going back even further, fear of people dismissing me was always a big thing. I think a big thing for me was fear of being treated as a menace. Um, because people are scared of things that are different, and I've always been treated differently because I never looked at myself as being strange, but I'm kind of forced to see myself as being a little bit atypical because the way people react to me and my thoughts is not the way they react to most people's thoughts. I mean, like, trying to look at it objectively, I come at things like an artist. I come at things like a explorer, like a um, I mean, I don't want to label myself anything silly, but I I have a very kind of open-ended view of things. I try not to get stuck into a box. I try not to fit too much into a stereotype. Now for a long time I tried really hard not to fit into a stereotype, so I I would catch myself falling into the stereotype of not wanting to fit into a stereotype, like the typical punk rocker who they want to be so different that they act exactly like every other punk rocker, or the same thing goes for any subculture. I think we get so tied up in the idea of not being typical that we become typical within our community. And I struggle with that for a while. I worked through that for a while, but I always challenged that idea. And now I feel more than ever that I don't need to be different. I don't need to be the same. It's just do what comes natural, and whatever it is. And it's always been a little bit different, and I've just come to accept that. Um, the fear for me was being treated as a menace, getting in trouble, having actual consequences um, for being who I am, doing what comes natural to me, sharing my thoughts openly. And it's always played out that way. And I think part of it played out that way because I was so scared, because I didn't have the kind of confidence to have a charisma that people would accept what I had to say. It was more like this kind of really nervous expression, this really angry expression. Like I had a lot of anger in me where I was always fighting against something. And when you fight against things, they fight back. So when you're sharing your truth in a way that is aggressive towards something else, you're fighting, let's say you're fighting against the current political state, or you're fighting against some kind of restriction that you see society having on people. It's like when you see those people as the enemy, they're going to treat you as the enemy too. But that's fear based. Once you stop having the fear that this is going to control my life or this is going to hurt me, and you start coming from the place of I love I love this idea and I want to share it with people, or I love this idea and I'm going to speak it. It doesn't matter if people listen or not, but I'm just going to create something out of it, or um, I'm just going to write, and it doesn't matter if people read or not. I'm just going to, because there's the fear of people not caring too. But when you just do it out of love, it tends to have less consequences. It tends to be less alienating towards people. They might not understand. There might still be people that attack it, but it's definitely less likely when you do it out of love and excitement. Um, and when it does happen, there's a learning opportunity there. You know, maybe these are not people you can work with um, right now, or maybe you should have done it a different way, or you should have done it together with other people instead of doing it by yourself, or you should have done it alone instead of with other people. There's always a learning opportunity in the um, attempt to do something out of love, to express something out of love and excitement. But yeah, when you do it out of fear, it doesn't work that way. It tends to get you into more trouble. You might win, but you find out later that you're not happy with winning, and that's how you find a lot of the people become exactly what they were fighting. You fight against your parents your whole life and you become just like them because you were fighting against them instead of just being who you knew that you were. um, Fear of danger, fear of danger is reasonable to have. There are places in the world where it's not safe. There are people who are predators. There are people who take advantage, and so it's reasonable to be scared of other people. But if you let that stop you doing from what you want to do, or if you let that constantly weigh you down, you find yourself in situations where you get screwed over by those people, or you get kind of trapped. One thing that comes to mind is when I would live in hostels. I spent about a year and a half, 2 years living in hostels, traveling around. I was kind of studying during the time, and I noticed that some people would constantly run into problems, like having their wallet stolen, having their bag stolen, um, being tricked out of money, um, getting into sticky situations. And the vibe that they gave me was like, if I were looking to take advantage of someone, I would easily be able to justify taking advantage of them because they gave me this vibe of like they don't trust other people, so why should I trust them? They don't care about other people, so why should I care about them? And some predators don't care. They're happy to take advantage of a decent person, but a lot of them, I think, if they have to choose between a decent person or an asshole, they're gonna take advantage of the asshole because at least they can tell themselves the story that they're just taking advantage of someone who would have taken advantage of someone else. Um, and so, I had this attitude of like, I'll protect the things that are really important to me, the things that I need, my passport, my wallet, my computer. So I had a really old computer that I felt like it's not going to last that long. And because I thought it's not going to last that long, I just did an experiment and I left it on the table somewhere. And I would leave it there for hours. And maybe because I mean, it looked like a decent computer, but nobody ever went after it. Nobody ever stole it. And I realized like the vibe that I was giving people was this is a comfortable place where we trust each other. And I think that if someone was looking to steal something, they would have had the thought that like the people here trust each other. And so if I do something bad, I might get caught easier here because they trust each other and I'm new and I need to be careful to not do anything that will easily be or easily expose me for you know um, whatever. I mean, I think most people aren't thinking I'm committing a crime here when they steal something like that. They're just thinking like, oh, I need money, and so I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get money. But they're more hesitant to do it in an environment where people trust each other because it stands out when they do, and they're more worried about standing out because then they can't get away with it. So um, I kind of I feel like in a way I created that atmosphere by leaving that out on the table and by acting like everywhere was kind of like home and not being uncomfortable and scared about new people that came and being more trusting helped other people be more trusting. And I think that if there were any people with kind of bad intentions, it made them more nervous of doing anything about those bad intentions. And it doesn't work every time. So I did that with a computer that I wasn't scared to lose because it was so old. I wouldn't do that with a brand new computer. I would have locked up a new computer, and I would have done it very casually without being nervous. So because the more nervous you are, the more you attract that kind of stuff. Um, you look like you have something to steal, and the people that want to steal go straight for you. Imagine, a lot of people, they travel somewhere. Let's say they have money and they go somewhere where people don't have enough money, and they're wearing their fancy watches, and it's like they're nervous that someone's gonna steal their watch. Well, don't wear your effing watch. Um, it's, I wouldn't flaunt shit like that if I had it. I don't, but um, yeah. So fear of danger. You feel that people fear that people are out to get you. Take precautions. That's important. Make sure you don't leave a drink somewhere where someone could put something in it. Um, you know, if you're done drinking it, leave it there. Don't. um, Make sure that there are other people around, so that if somebody does something to you, then you have others to call on, or to say like, hey, look, somebody's doing something bad. You can call out for help. Make sure you know the environment. That's fine. But once you know the environment, there's no need to worry about the other things as long as you've taken precautions, because if it happens, it happens. You can live in fear all your life. It's not going to help you stay safe. But so yeah, fear, I still get that. Well, I'm worried about traveling certain places because I look at the crime rate, I look at the rate of violent crimes, and I see even in my home country, there are certain places where it's like, oh, a lot of stuff happens here. Doesn't stop me from going everywhere, but when it comes to new places, new environments, especially places where I look different, I think whenever you look different, you tend to attract trouble more. And so you can also attract positive things more in that case. But it's good to know the territory. And so, um, I just try to make as many friends as I can first before I go, to know where I'm staying, if it's somewhere that I sense might be a little bit dangerous. And I wait till I'm ready. Whew, but more fear. There's so much fear that we're just, you know, it just weighs so heavily on us. And the more you face it, the more you start to loosen up, and you feel good about things. You feel, you have more bandwidth for joy, instead of just constantly worrying about things, constantly stressing, constantly looking at the negative side of things. A lot of times, negativity comes from just this kind of fear that things won't go right, or um, fear that there's fear of danger, fear of recently the fears I'm trying to face are fears of nature, because um, I grew up in a kind of sheltered place in many ways. It was suburban, where there wasn't much crime there, and there was nature around, but it was very sterilized nature, where there were trees, there were animals, but there were no bears there. There were no boars. There were no dangerous insects, and so it's a pretty comfortable place to live. It wasn't really interesting, but it was comfortable. And so in the city, when I came to the city, it was new, and you know, and also in the countryside, it's new, and there's a lot of things I'm not used to. So I went out to the country last week, and I saw three people out of 25 get bitten by leeches, and it's like, oh, fuck, there's leeches here. This is disgusting, first of all, but like, uh, there's this just kind of nervous, animalistic fear that comes from these predators. Even if they're not deadly, they're just tiny little creatures that's suck on our blood. But um, I don't know if it's rational or irrational, but like, just, I was constantly checking my body after that for the next 48 hours. Even when I left the countryside, I was checking my body for leeches. And so, I faced it. I looked at pictures of them. I tried to like say, okay, these are just little things that suck a little blood. It's not a big deal. My first thought was disease, like these things could probably cause diseases, and so I checked online to see like what kind of dangers are there if you get bit by a leech. Then there are allergic reactions and stuff, but it was a lot less dangerous than I imagined. Um, I saw people pinching and getting some blood out to. I realized now what they were doing was sometimes if you put salt on them, they throw up in your blood. I know that's disgusting, but that can makes it more likely to cause a kind of adverse reaction. But generally, they seem to be harmless according to the internet. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but yeah, so I sat with that and I tried to accept looking at them and not being disgusted. And I'm still gonna avoid them like the plague. But yeah, I feel a little bit less nervous now, a little bit. But I'm gonna keep doing that, keep facing that. The other fear I faced over there was bears, which reasonable thing to fear, right? But then the fear, like the goal is to make that fear reasonable. Because a lot of times the reasonable fear has an unreasonable fear on top of it. And it's the unreasonable fear that's weighing down on us. The reasonable fear is if you see a bear, don't do anything stupid. That's a reasonable thing, don't go out of your way to go somewhere where you're gonna see a bear. Don't do anything that would attract a bear. It's not a good idea in general, obviously. But um, you know, um, trying to understand where you run into these bears, helped me to look at it a little less unreasonably. And understanding the difference between a grizzly and a black bear is a big thing because, you know, there are no grizzlies here, thankfully, but they tend to be a lot more aggressive. Doing research and I mean, shit, going to a zoo and actually looking at a bear and seeing how they behave um, and understanding that seeing them in a zoo is totally different from seeing them in the wild, and it definitely will be more dangerous in the wild. But as I watch videos, I realize like these are pretty unpredictable creatures. They're unpredictable more than they are um, what I don't want to say aggressive because they can be aggressive, but a lot of times they seem to be curious when people run into them and kind of confused, easily confused. And I guess if you confuse them, it's easy to get them angry. And if they're curious, they might not realize that they're hurting you. And they might get annoyed at little things that you do, and you know, could attack based on that. Fear, when you're scared, you tend to do things that will confuse them and could put you in a situation where they do want to attack. So learning all the ways to deal with that if you run into that. Because when I was out there, I heard a few stories. The first couple people I asked said they never ran into a bear, and that's important to do too because, asking people and looking at this reasonably, you see like, oh, this guy's lived out here his whole life. He never saw a bear. That means I'm not necessarily going to see a bear just because I go out to the countryside. Because up until that point, I was walking down these quiet roads and just thinking, I'm gonna see a bear, 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 and it was really stressful. Where once you once you calm down and you think about things reasonably, you think about that more, and you realize it's the same with riding an airplane. You get in an airplane and you think, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. You think about it reasonably and you realize statistically it's more likely you'll get hit by a car. Statistically, it's probably more likely you'll get hit by lightning. Haven't checked that, but um, I'm guessing that's the case. I mean, it's pretty rare. Um, doesn't mean it's a zero chance that could happen, but you know, it's the unreasonable fear that tends to stress us out. When you see it reasonably, you just know to take precautions. And so I think all of us have these fears. We're scared that our partners are going to leave us. We're scared that somebody's going to steal from us. We're scared that we're going to get fired from our job. We're scared that our parents aren't going to be happy with us. We're scared that it just goes on and on and on and on. There's the physical dangers, there's the social repercussions of things, and they just pile on and pile on and pile on. And I think the easiest way to solve any kind of emotional issue um, is to face these fears and to be able to move past them. Um, treat them as signs, signs to be careful of something. Not necessarily accurate all the time, because just because there's a sign that says be careful of something doesn't mean you're actually going to run into it. Doesn't mean that it could be an old sign, it could be an inaccurate sign, it could be based on very, very, very small chances of something happening. And you're not going to understand the real danger unless you calm down. And I think depression might even be influenced by this. The all these fears of failure, all these fears of things not going as you please, all of things, not being able to please everyone. You're not going to be able to please everyone, and that's okay. If you can please yourself, that's enough. If you please yourself, you'll be able to please somebody. If you don't please yourself, you're not going to be able to please anyone. So I don't want to go too personal about anyone in particular, but I can think of two or three people right now who are really stressed out about their relationships and the relationships of people around them, and they're scared to say anything that's going to upset the people around them. And it's like that fear is going to lead them to say something that upsets the people around them. It's just kind of inevitable, I think, at some point. You might please them, but then even if you do please them, you manage to please them in the end, you're going to be stressing yourself out, and that's going to cause you to be less able to please the people around you. So, you know, in these situations, I just say, fuck it. If the other person's upset, then they're upset, because what can I do? I can hide it, keep it in, and then I'm going to turn into a shittier person because of it. That's not helping anyone. Um, you know, that's why it's important to make boundaries. That's why, and you can't make boundaries if you're scared. If you're scared of the repercussions, because a lot of people are not used to other people making boundaries, and so when you do it, they get upset. But it's inevitable. It's inevitable, and uh, if you stay calm, you can find a way to do it respectfully, where you still might upset them, but hopefully, if the connection is what you think it is, what you want it to be, then they will understand eventually. And if they don't understand, then the connection is not what you ever thought it was. It had problems that you didn't acknowledge, and it's always better to acknowledge those problems, because that creates more room for better relationships, either with that person or with another person. Um, yeah. Oof. There's a lot more. I'll just go into one more that I've been working on recently. Since I was young, I've always been kind of scared of the dark. I'm not sure if that's a common thing or not. I'm not sure if that's like a childish thing, if it sounds childish to most people, but or if it's like a typical phobia, if everyone has these phobias. I don't know where it comes from. I've dug into it a bit, and I think I'm starting to understand. But at first, I thought it was ancestral trauma, because my grandfather was hiding in the woods and running for his life from Nazis, and maybe that carried over into my parents' DNA and then my DNA. Not sure if that's how it works. Not sure if that's what happened. Um, and then I thought for a while that it might be because I just have an overactive mind that is constantly analyzing things and exploring possibilities. And so I tend to explore these just radical possibilities too, like things that a lot of people don't even consider possible. Um, you know, things that get into beliefs and whatever. And even if I don't believe in something, I'll still consider the possibility that I might be wrong and that might exist. And recently, I'm starting to think that maybe the fear of the dark comes from the fact that I haven't faced physical danger. I haven't faced the fear of physical danger that resides within me somewhere, where like facing the potential of running into a bear, or facing the potential of being mugged. You know, I've lived a very sheltered existence for most of my life. I moved to Japan as soon as I graduated, so I went from the suburbs to a relatively safe city in the States to this one of the safest countries in the world to a country that, you know, like everywhere I've lived has been pretty safe, relative to, let's say, 50 to 70% of the world. So I haven't had a chance to face those fears of physical danger. And I realized as soon as I started facing the fear of bears, I stopped feeling as afraid of the dark. And so even if I imagine things like ghosts and aliens and all this other weird shit that I don't necessarily believe I'm going to run into, whether I believe in those or not is another topic. Um, whether or not those exist or not is a totally other topic. But yeah, I think that the not having the chance to develop a sturdy foundation of what do you call it, like psychological needs and the Maslow's hierarchy, the bottom levels, where you have like food, shelter, safety. I think safety is the second level. I haven't faced that for myself. Haven't had to face that for myself because I was sheltered. You know, overprotective parents, I guess, didn't allow me to, you know, face anything dangerous. And so I think that might be where the fear of the dark comes from. But anyways, like every single time I face these fears, every single time I get past these fears, I discover on the other side is a stronger, more capable version of myself. And every single time something heals, I feel better. I am able to fix a problem that I wasn't able to fix before. Something that used to be difficult becomes easier. And so, you know, there's all kinds of ways to try and attempt to fix yourself, fix your problems, become a better person. But in my experience, making an effort to face your fears, to get past your fears, to recontextualize your fears, and to get rid of the irrational part and only allow for that rational fear that is a, how do I say, is a realistic indicator of a potential danger that you probably should consider, and to just get rid of anything that is not that, any other fear that is not that in that moment, in every moment. To train yourself to not let those irrational fears pop up, to just replace them with logical analysis of the situation, or to ask questions instead of just freaking out, to try and understand things better so that you know whether or not you need to be scared of something, to replace that instinctual irrational fear with the just a habit of deconstructing that fear and trying to understand what's reasonable and what's not. I think is really important. I know I didn't get that in one swing, but I think I got it across anyway. So I think that's all for today. I'm gonna end it with a song. I'll play probably half of it, or maybe the full song if I'm in the mood. We'll see. That guitar. Fuck it. Yeah, I don't know. Haven't played for a while, so. Visible strings tied around us. We know that is us all around us. invisible heights up off the ground. Tingling night seems to fool. This is love. Forgot the lyrics. Missing more, but offering less. We've outgrown the need to worship these and it's I haven't played for a while, so a little sloppy, but yeah, that's all for today. I have Patreon. Anything that you could offer, I would appreciate. The more people support it, the more I can make, the more I can put energy into this. I Yeah, the Patreon. I'll put a link there. I plus everything. I got music on SoundCloud. I plus everything. Got Instagram, social media. I plus everything. Um, Untangled Knots podcast on Spotify and every other podcast platform. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're not watching this on YouTube, there's a YouTube channel which some of it overlaps, some of it doesn't. And I got a book called Confessions of the Damaged, a book series that is a novella series about a homeless protagonist that untangles and tries to face his fears and recontextualize his past and connect with all that is. So yeah, this one went kind of long today, but it's all good. We'll see how this evolves in the future. Oh, last thing. Podcast. Speaking of podcasts, I put up an episode with Dr. Rune Javier, good friend. It's all about trust and how we have it and how we don't have it. How it is probably one of the most fundamental things to create a better life and a better society, and how we've got it all wrong. And it's an amazing conversation. So if you got this far and you enjoyed this, you're definitely going to enjoy that. That's it. Have an awesome day, an awesome week, an awesome life. If this is the last time you ever see me, which hopefully it won't be, and I doubt it will be, and I don't know how to turn this off.